Fantastic. All right. I have pleasure in opening the council briefing of the 15th of October 2024 at 6 p.m. and welcome all those in attendance. The City of Vincent would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and to pay our respects to elders past and present. We also acknowledge that the City of Vincent has a role in working towards reconciliation and justice for First Nations people. I notice that everybody is here, so there are obviously no apologies and no approved leave of absence. Would anyone who's present like to speak? Okay, no one has indicated that they wish to speak. So there are no further, there's no questions, and public question time has closed at 6:01. Okay, so Governance Manager, do you have any statements? I understand 2 have been received.
Yes, confirming we received 2 statements in support of item 8.2 from Adam Kapanoff of Perth and Bradley Woods of West Perth.
Thank you. And CEO, have we got any declarations of interest?
Yes, thanks to you, Mayor Zaman. The following declarations have been received. The first from Councillor Warner, a financial interest in relation to item 7.5, Underground Power, North Perth, Mount Hawthorn, Service Charges and Co-Funding Agreement. The extent of the interest is that Councillor Warner owns property in this project area. Councillor Warner also declared a financial interest in relation to item 5.1, number 10 Farmer Street, North Perth, alterations and additions to the recreation facility Woodville Reserve. The extent of the interest being that Councillor Warner's son is employed at the North Perth Bowling Club. Councillor Wolf declared an impartiality interest in relation to the same item, 5.1, number 10 Farmer Street, North Perth, noting that Councillor Wolf is a social member of the North Perth Bowling Club. Councillor Wolf declared an impartiality interest in relation to item 8.3, the information bulletin, the extent of the interest being that Councillor Wolf is a former member of the Stop the Station community group. That's all the declarations I've received.
Councillors, is there anyone else who wishes to declare a conflict of interest? Okay, so I'm going to see what items members would like to ask questions in relation to. Councillor Warner. Okay, Councillor Wallace.
7.5, thanks, Mayor.
Sorry, could you say that again?
7.5.
7.5, sorry about that. I just didn't quite hear. Councillor LaFontaine. Councillor Castle. Councillor Greer.
6.1, 7.3 and 8.2.
Councillor Alexander.
7.4.
Councillor Wolf.
5.2 and 8.3, please.
Councillor Hallett. Okay, so I'll just work out which ones we're going to be dealing with. Okay, so we'll move to the first item for questions, which is 5.2 Public Health Plan 2020 to 2025. So, Councillor Wolf.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. This is fine for the briefing notes, but I was just wondering if there was any additional information that could be provided about development of the next plan, and if there's any information we could have about when that consultation might begin and in what forms that would take. That would be really helpful for responding to residents who are raising public health related queries at the moment. Thanks.
Yes, through you, Mayor Zaman. We'll be hosting or putting a paper to the next council workshop, which will provide a draft engagement plan, which will set all of that out. But we can also provide some overarching details in the briefing notes.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Are there any further questions in relation to this item? Okay, so now I'll move on to 6.1, Loftus Recreation Centre, review of annual lease payments. Councillor Greer, you had some questions?
Yes, just one. Thank you, Mayor Zamon. Just in relation to the closure of the creche as one of the steps that was taken in terms of tackling the financial challenges, we were contacted by a few folks who expressed that they decided they no longer wanted to be able to go to Loftus because of the closure of the creche. And just wondering if administration had any impact, any information available from Loftus on the kind of cost benefit of the closure of the creche.
Through you, Mayor Zamon, at the time of the creche closure, the manager of Loftus did consult me before they did that. They did some surveys of their members, and I can provide some more details about what they told me at the time. I can't quite remember off the top of my head, but I will drag those notes out and provide those in the briefing notes for you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. That was the only question.
Are there any further questions in relation to this item? Okay, so moving on to the next item, which is investment report as at 31st of August 2024. Councillor Greer, you had some questions.
Thank you, Mayor Zamon. Just a question to see that I have interpreted a graph correctly. On the bottom of page 103, we've got our fossil fuel exposure, and just at the August 2024, it seems from my read that our exposure to fossil fuels has increased and it is a high. I was just wondering if there's any further comment on that.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Zamon. So generally the tier 2 financial institutions are non-fossil fuel investing banks. In August, a lot of our rates funds come in and CBA doesn't meet the criteria. So as those funds come into our sort of normal bank account, it sort of skews that graph a little bit. Encouragingly, I think CBA is working towards getting that status. So in the future, we should see that sort of shift around as well.
Thank you. That was all.
Are there any further questions in relation to this item? Okay, so moving on to the next item, are there any questions for 7.4, the draft Stretch Reconciliation Action Plan 2025-2027? Councillor Alexander, you indicated you had some questions.
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to know who the elders are. Could we have their names and that, please?
Through you, Mayor Zamon, the current Bridger reference group members are Rodney Cox, Cyril Yarran, Uncle Albert McNamara and Irene McNamara.
Sorry, would you mind sending those details to
sure.
me?
Yeah.
You wouldn't mind? Yeah.
No.
Yeah, thanks.
Sorry, Councillor Alexander, because there are people listening in on this as well, I might just have administration give the full list of people as well as follow up with written. Is that acceptable? Thank you.
So Auntie Irene McNamara, Uncle Ben Taylor and Auntie Muriel Bowie.
Thank you.
Councillor Greer.
Thank you, Mayor Zamon. In the notes, it says that some of the 59 of the actions are prescribed and others are optional. I was just wondering if that was how that was indicated in the report, if it was the bolding or not.
Yes, the bolded ones were prescribed by Reconciliation Australia.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much. And one last question. I know we've got in there that will increase the Noongar language collection in the library. I was just wondering if we had any comments in terms of increasing the Noongar artwork in our art collection.
I'll have to take that one on notice and I'll provide some notes in the briefing note.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions in relation to this item? Okay, so now we move on to 7.5, Underground Power, North Perth Mount Hawthorn project and co-funding agreement. Councillor Warner, you do have a financial interest, so you're leaving. Okay, so Councillor Wallace, you had some questions.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I just had a query around how the connection charges are going to be applied. So the range given in the report is from $0 to about $3,500, which is a pretty significant range. I was just wondering if some further information could be provided in the briefing notes about, I guess, how that will be calculated exactly, and perhaps some case studies on what might result in a $0 charge, a charge halfway through that mark, and the full charge.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Zamon, I can do that and also provide some information now. So if you currently have an underground connection, you'll pay zero. If you require an underground connection, you'll pay the full amount. For properties where multiple properties are connecting to the one connection, that connection charge will be shared amongst all those sort of properties. So if there's 4 units and there's one connection, they'll pay 1/4 of the cost. So that's generally how that sort of works.
You can prepare. Thank you.
Okay.
Councillor Greer.
Thank you, Mayor Zamon. In the document we've got there that an estimated maximum of 70% of ratepayers will take up the 4-year instalment option. Just wondering if we have a ballpark of how many we expect might take up that option, and also if we get close to 70%, how people will be determined who gets to access the loan option.
Through you, Mayor Zamon. So the 70% is based on the previous modelling we have done before and the underground power financial model, and it sort of essentially was the maximum we could sort of opt for that option to. So we can borrow up to 50% per project, and the other 20% will come from a use of our reserves. So it's hard to say how many will take it up. Other local governments probably hovers around 50%, but it does depend on the actual cost of the underground connection as well. We will prioritise seniors and pensioners and those on financial hardship first, but we wouldn't envisage that there would be, I suppose, an over sort of supply in the first project area given the level of affordability with those costs. But yeah, we will learn a lot from the first project as well, and we'll have some more data to bring back to council too.
Thank you. And just a question in terms of the communication that's outlined in the document. I understand where the City of Vincent will distribute a leaflet, and then down the track, Western Power will put a leaflet in every letterbox. Is the City working with Western Power in terms of what's communicated in the Western Power leaflet to make sure we're all giving the same set of information or similar information, non-contradictory information?
Yeah, through Mayor Zamon, yes, they provided templates of what they generally will communicate. So it should be different. Some of it will be from the contractors as well, but that's generally around the construction and when they're sort of boots on ground, essentially. So yes, it will be different, our level of communication, to what Western Power will be as well.
Thank you. That was all my questions.
Are there any further questions in relation to this item? Okay, Councillor Warner can come rejoin us. So do you mind just fetching her if that's okay? Thank you. Okay, so the next item is item 8.2. Councillor, that's acquisition right of way and consideration of private use for Brisbane Street parking bays by Brisbane Hotel. So Councillor Greer, you indicated you had some questions.
Excellent. Thank you, Mayor Zamon. In the notes, we state that ideally perhaps the funding from the sale will go towards Birdwood Square upgrades. I was just wondering if in the briefing notes we could get any more information. Do we have a vision for Birdwood Square documented somewhere that is currently underfunded, or would it be that we would like it to be better, but we haven't worked that out yet? Just
through the chair, we don't have a master plan over Birdwood. We have received some funding towards lighting upgrades, and the city hasn't identified any other sources of funding for that. So that's something that this could go towards. However, the process to actually get to the point of sale is likely to take 18 months to 2 years. So we would need to revisit at that point. The money would just go into reserve and we could pull it out for works in there in the future.
So for that reserve, and noting that we've got a real shortage of public open space in Highgate, Mount Lawley and Perth, do we see there's any opportunities also, not just for Birdwood Square, but to consider the creation of other public open space in that area? Or do you see it as the primary alternative is Birdwood Square?
Through the chair, our POS strategy identifies where we think we might be able to acquire some more land. It's pretty limited in these locations. The majority of our focus of the strategy is to improve our existing POS areas. The areas that we have identified that we would be able to try and expand is mainly in Mount Hawthorn, where there's some underutilised road reserves that we think we can close. As part of the briefing notes, we can add a comment just to confirm whether or not there was anything specific in this area.
Excellent, thank you. Or any further consideration of how it might benefit people around Highgate, Mount Lawley or Perth would be excellent. Just a quick one to make sure I understood it correctly. It's the document refers to the courtyard a lot as a community courtyard, but just confirming that it won't be available to the community outside of the opening hours.
Through the chair, that's correct. It would be within the confines of the hotel.
Excellent. And last question, we've got in there that the occupancy of the car park is very low. I was just wondering if in the briefing notes we could get some info on like when that was conducted and a bit more information about the occupancy of the car park as well.
Through the chair, we can try and obtain that information.
Councillor Alexander, you wish to ask a question?
With regards to 8.2, when the one at 7 or 8 Baker Street was approved basically to be a concert venue, part of the agreement was based on the fact that there would be parking across Burswood. So would the sale of these parking areas affect then that concert venue, which relied on those parking bays to get approval?
Through the chair, as per the report, the current occupancy of the car park is around 20%. This would result in the loss of 7 bays. We would still have 156 parking bays on site, and that's likely sufficient to cater to demand in the area.
Including the Brisbane Hotel patronage?
Through the chair, that's correct. So we can provide some details in the briefing notes of some updated parking statistics around different hours, maybe perhaps around those peak periods of the hotel, to give a bit of an indication of how utilised the bays are.
Okay, that'd be appreciated.
Councillor Castle.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a follow-on question from Councillor Greer's questions around the reserve. I'm just wondering if some consideration could be given in the briefing notes to the benefit of actually earmarking the money for Birdwood Square versus for the Highgate Mount Lawley area. What's the actual commitment of council by including this in our decision? Because my understanding would be that in 2 years or 4 years' time, council of the time could just decide to reallocate that somewhere else.
Through the chair, so the indication that it could be used towards Birdwood just gives a bit of clarity around what the funds could be used for in the future. It would generally go into the reserve, and if money is proposed to be removed from the reserve, then we would look to try and reconcile where that money came in from and what its intended purpose was. It would be open to a future council to change the purpose of it or change the designation of where it's intended to be placed at the time the budget's adopted.
Thank you. I suppose I'd be interested to see either an amendment prepared or a change in the wording that was allowed for that to be applied to the area, not anywhere in Vincent, but to the Highgate area. Just given that it could be 2 years or more that we're going to allocate these funds.
Councillor Wolf.
Thank you, Mayor. Sounds like I might not be alone in being a little bit sceptical about the portrayal of this one as a multifaceted community courtyard, particularly one that has potential for further activation of the space and the car park. So I was just hoping we could clarify, please, 2 things. One, surely the potential to activate and use the car park that already exists. So how much so does the proposal further enable that? And 2, I think in the report, if we could be really clear about whether or not this is genuinely a community courtyard, or is it a place for people to come and drink beers and watch their kids play in the corner, which is great. That's all good. That sounds like a good day out. But if we could just be really clear about whether there is some benevolent sort of community use here, or it's mostly about pub use for patrons.
Through the chair, I'm not sure that what's been written in the report is maybe been communicated correctly. It is a private enclosed courtyard that would form part of the private premises of the hotel and be used by those users. I think what we're inferring when we say activation, that would be in terms of more people coming to the venue, which would have a flow-on effect to the car park, which is currently our only opportunity to raise revenue around that site is from our public car park and when users visit the venues in that area. So if the hotel improves, then perhaps there's a greater attraction to it and more people using the car park. That's one element. And then in terms of activation and events, I think that's more just there is a new operator of the hotel. They have a different priority for how they want to run their venue, and they have expressed an interest that they might be interested in future events in the car park. That's not currently off the table in their current configuration. It's just something they were suggesting, but it's not directly related to the acquisition of those parking bays.
Thank you. That's a helpful clarification in terms of the activation of that space. I still think that there is some scepticism that I hold, particularly around the language that has been used around the courtyard itself being a community courtyard. And perhaps that's something that could be updated in the report itself. Thanks.
Are there any further questions? Councillor Hallett.
Just in relation to the bays, Brisbane Street Car Park was a great example of regenerating open canopy in that space. Is there any impact on trees in sale? Sorry if I missed it.
Through the chair, the current plan indicates that it would be the 7 car parking bays and the garden beds alongside of it, of which there is two trees planted in each of those. And that would form part of the sale.
Are there any further questions in relation to this item? Okay, so now I'll move on to the next item. The next item is 8.3, the information bulletin. And Councillor Wolf, I believe you had some questions.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one. On the Angove Street petrol station refurbishment application, I was just wondering whether there was any update, please, from the directions hearing from Friday, the 11th of October. Thanks.
Mayor Zaman, yes, since we finalised this agenda, Friday happened and we had a directions hearing. I'll provide an update on that item as well as the Brisbane Street item as well, which also had a directions hearing on Friday. In short, the directions hearing on Friday was vacated and moving forward, there's going to be the preparation of effectively identification of issues, council's reasons for refusal, that will be communicated by the city, and then the applicant will have an opportunity, I guess, to agree or disagree with those issues. It's really whittling down what are the points of contention, and then there will be a directions hearing scheduled on the 20th of December, where all of those matters will be tabled and be much clearer in terms of what are the issues and clarification around that. So that's the process moving forward, and then there'll be further steps programmed at that stage. So for the time being, there was no directions on Friday, and we're packaging up some information around what the issues were from the city.
Are there any further questions in relation to this item? Okay, in that case, I thank the public and live stream viewers, and I close the meeting at 6:23. Wendy, can you please turn off the live stream?